Another day, another deck video, and we're going to go over one that has made its way to the top of Tier 2 and is trying to push for that Tier 1 status in set championship season. You already see it on the screen. You already saw it in the title. Hopefully that's why you clicked on the video, and that is Amber Emerald, Sprite, Lemon Lime, whatever you want to call it, Songs, Discard, the fun deck. Under the Sea is one of the nastiest combos with Kita in the game currently. Maybe not the most annoying to play against because discard isn't fun to play against, which this deck does that too. But Under the Sea after Akita, well, it feels good for one player and not the other player. So we're going to go over a deck list today. Shoutouts to Phil from Locals. I think I believe three, if not more, of the tops in the spreadsheet are from him playing this deck. Almost identical deck list. He was playing the 2-drop Mother Gothel. And the reasoning behind that card is it's not a turn 2 play usually. It's one where you drop it later in the game, and then you pay the extra ink to bounce one of their characters back to their hand, and then you play a discard effect and get it out of their hand, effectively removing something off of the board. So it's a great card. I just really wanted a second hitting Cove, so I popped those two out and ended up putting in a third Sir Hiss. Otherwise, if we take out one Cove, one Hiss, two Gothels, it's the list that he's been using to do really, really well at set championships. Sir Hiss is just there as like a preemptive, helpful way to remove your opponent's Diablo quickly. I really like it. Obviously, the one means he's just going to die, but that's okay. If he takes out a Diablo, he served his purpose. On turn 1, it's the only 1-drop we're playing outside of the Cove, but the Cove isn't really a card you go for turn 1 typically. Diablo. And when you play this character, you may look at each opponent's hand. Obviously, gaining that hand knowledge is nice. It helps you learn and know how to play out your hand more effectively and more optimally. And then, obviously, we're playing this because of the nasty shift with Diablo turn 2. There's no reason to shift it on turn 1 on the very off chance that your opponent runs a Fire the Cannon. It just opens you up for unneeded anything because you can't exert it this turn, so why even bother? Don't ever do it on turn 1. You'd be surprised how many times I see people do that. In the 2-drop spot, like I said, we got Sir Hiss there with a 3 attack, being able to clear Diablo or another threat if needed. Mr. Smee's another one, but mainly there for that evasive Diablo to be able to remove it. And then it's a discard deck, and once again, that hand knowledge and hitting songs from your opponent is very good. So Ursula Deceiver is going to be a mandatory 4 of. We play a lot of songs, so naturally Ariel's going to be in there too, and she can go ahead, look at the top 4 cards of your deck and whiff about 65-70% of the time, but those 30% that you hit one, man, does it feel good. Other 3-drops we're playing pretty heavy in the 3s. Anna, Diplomatic Queen. The fact that she has 3 different abilities when you play her, and again, you're going to want to wait till you have 5 ink to play her. That's why we don't max her out at 4, in addition to being uninkable. But when you play this character, you can pay 2 ink and either make your opponent discard, give a character 2 extra strength, or you can banish a chosen damaged character. So that's another way, assuming they don't have ward. If you really need to get rid of like a Tamatoa, you you crash something small into it, put some damage on it, drop the Ana, banish the chosen damaged character, and remove it that way if needed. Diablo is a card you want to see, so we're going to play him at 4. Just naturally, this card is very, very strong. Centering your strategy around discard for the most part means Prince John is probably going to be in your deck as an Emerald deck as well, because he's the draw engine of your deck. And speaking of ward, he has it. If you get him at the Cove too, that extra strength really does matter quite a bit. So that's why I wanted to go to 2 Cove, because Prince John and Diablo each having 3 strength, getting away from a Baboom, away from Fire the Cannons, and more importantly, let the Storm Rage on. Getting away from being one-shotted by cards like that is the main reason that we decided to play 2 Coves. 3 Muses, we're playing a lot of songs. It allows you to disrupt your opponent's tempo and to just slow their roll, effectively board wiping them too, because like we were saying with the other Mother Gothel and things like, we don't talk about Bruno, if they have a card on their board and you just can't out it like with challenging or board removal, but you can bounce it to their hand and then force a discard, you're effectively removing it from their board that way. So Muses just allows you to do that. Or if you're in a slow game at the very end. You're both trying to pluck away for game, and you can just play a song even if it doesn't do anything else. You play the song, bounces one of their characters back to their hand. Now it won't be ready to quest on your opponent's next turn, so you can just slow them down that way as well. Kita at 4. There's no real reason to have the shift Kita in here, so I don't like the 1-drop whatsoever. I do see some lists playing it that are topping events, but I agree with Phil. I definitely don't like it in there. Kind of like hyper aggro decks. I don't like to play little Kita in there, but I will play the big Kita still just for the ability. Giving everything -3 means that your Under the Sea most likely is going to go ahead and board wipe them. And I guess that would be the biggest perk of playing her the shift Kita, so that you could play little Kita and then shift into Kita and then be able to sing a little more often. But even by turn 5, especially if you have Ariel on board, Ariel already counts for 3. And then say if you played Prince John or Diablo or Anna or Muses on turn 4, you just use your Ariel and whatever other card to sing your Under the Sea instead. You don't even need Kita to sing it. You just play her, get the -3, play your Under the Sea. Sometimes you need to close out a game, sometimes you need to challenge, sometimes you just need the utility. So we play Cricky, giving everything +3, all of your characters I should say, everything on your side of the board +3 strength this turn, so you can go card for card and take out your opponent's board. In addition to that, he has 4 willpower and quests for 3. Very good tool for helping close out a game as it progresses. In our action spots, I thought about Hypnotize, but it's just actions are so hard to place into decks. Like, it's hard to have too many because they don't build your board presence and they're not singable. It's just essentially taking a turn off from doing anything else. At least characters give you the board presence. Songs, you have the alternate paying cost, so you don't have to use them that way. And actions just feel kind of awkward. Being able to discard and draw is nice, especially because if they have no hand, you can still play it to draw a card, whereas You Have Forgotten Me doesn't really do anything. However, forcing them to discard 2 cards if they have them is very, very detrimental to them. Like I said, we have a lot of songs, and we're at 20. Painting the Roses Red was another song that I debated just dropping this to 2 and putting Cove to 2 and leaving the 2 Gothels in and just calling it a day. But at the end of the day, we did leave the Roses Are Red here, being able to -1 strength to 2 characters and draw cards. So it's essentially there as a guaranteed draw, and it potentially can pair up with your Under the Sea. They have a couple characters with 3 strength. Well, now they have 2 strength, and then your Under the Sea can hit them as well, and you got to draw a card in the process. So naturally, it just fits in with the deck really, really well. The other cards in your deck, well, they're either removal or discard. Bare Necessities gives you that hand knowledge, not like you need it after Diablo and Ursula, but then being able to discard a non-character of your choice, and Sudden Chill obviously forcing your opponent to discard a card. We don't talk about Bruno gets a card off their board into their hand, and then they discard. If they have no cards in hand, it is a form of removal. You're welcome. Not only can you use it on yourself if you really need the draw, but it's another way you return their card, put it back into their deck. They get to draw 2, but if you have something like You Have Forgotten Me, then you can sing You're Welcome, get rid of their threat on board. They draw 2, you play your You Have Forgotten Me, they discard 2, and if you have Prince John on board, now you get to draw 2. So at the end, essentially, you draw 2 and they lose their character off the board. Feels pretty strong, but that's just me. Under the Sea. So put all opposing characters with 2 strength or less at the bottom of their player's deck in any order. So again, essentially you hit the board with Kita, you play this card, and their board goes away. But the nice thing about this is in a meta filled with green steel, you don't always need Kita to get a lot of value out of this card. Even against Steel Song, they have a handful of cards that don't have more than the 2. So if you don't have the Kita, this card isn't necessarily bad still. It's way better with the Kita, because effectively then everything with 5 strength goes to the bottom of the deck. But Under the Sea on its own is still a very, very strong card. And then lastly, we have those 2 hidden coves. Again, I like the +1 strength, +1 willpower. Helps your like I said, Diablo, it helps it dodge Brawl. It helps it dodge Storm Rage On. It just helps a lot of niche scenarios. Things like Smash, obviously, are going to answer. There's going to be answers to everything in the game. I only point that out because every time I talk about you play this for this scenario and this, and someone always comments, well, what about this card? Everything has an answer. That's the only answer I can give on that, is everything has an answer. If you try hard enough, every card has a response. Every deck has if only I had this card in my hand, I could have won. But at the end of the day, you only have what you have. You only have what you draw. You only have what you see. And that's just how the deck or how the game goes sometimes. Overall, 13 uninkable cards, so not too bad. Pretty high in our 2 costs and 3s. So our ink curve really only goes up to 5 other than the Under the Seas. But again, that's a Sing Together song. So having that 8 curve kind of is misleading. It's truly like a cap 5. That doesn't mean stop inking at 5 though. Like you want more than 5 inks. You want to be able to come back with multiple cards. So don't just stop right there is, I guess, the best way to put that. About $240 for the deck. Most of that going to be tied up in your Diablos. About half the deck alone is your Diablos. If you have those already from a couple sets ago, well, then you're in a pretty good spot. It's a really fun deck to play. It's actually a kind of hard deck to master. It's one of the few decks that I put together during the week that I'm going to mess around with. I put this one together, Blurple together, and Ruby Steel. And those are the 3 decks I'm really just going to mess around with probably for the rest of this format. But yeah, I think this deck is incredibly strong, and if more people were playing it, I absolutely think that it could take off and become that tier 1 threat. However, it just seems like Green Steel Discard is the deck everyone clung to, and it did end up going to tier 1, or the top of tier 1 as far as set championships have gone. So depending on your local meta, could change which decks you want to play. But if this is a deck you're interested in, kind of talked about like that Mother Gothel being another one. Otherwise, if you go on ink decks, the deck has quite a few tops. You can click on them. You can look, see what kind of cards you like, which ways you want to go with it. Do you want 4 Muses? Do you want more Ana? Do you want less Ana? Do you want Lucifer? Like I said, Hypnotize is a card. Do you want to play Painting the Roses? Do you not want to play Painting the Roses? Do you want more Coves? There's quite a bit you can do with the deck. So go ahead, check out other lists, see what works for you, see what cards you have. And by all means, if you have any questions, comment down below. I will try to answer them as much as I can. And I know Phil watches these, so maybe he could even help you out as well, being my local resident Lemon Lime player. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, take care.